weary eyes just weep and moan. Yeah, these weary eyes just weep and moan. And these empty arms won't leave the place alone. Zoe Vega's singing voice drifted among the metallic echoes, resonating through the colossal framework of the orbital launch platform. She hung from a harness fixed to a transversal beam, suspended above a maze of pipes, catwalks, pressurized hatches, and ducts, exhaling warm steam. Up there she could glimpse FOB Prometheus, built on the eastern edge of the Isle of the Crossroads. It was an amalgamation of Terran steel and aetherin crystal. From its height, one could see to the south the dense jungle covering the island like an undulating green mantle. To the north, cliffs dropped sharply into deep blue seas streaked with bioluminescent currents. The wind carried scents of salt, metal, and wet vegetation. You gave a solemn promise to me, Lord, but you broke it right down to the ground. Yes, you broke it right down to the ground and left no honest word to be found. Zoe's face glistened with sweat. Strands of her dark hair stuck to her forehead. Her light combat armor, camouflaged in jungle tones, was stained with soot, grease, and smudges of dirt. In the few patches of visible skin, scattered freckles shone, making her look even younger. She was attractive, sure, but right now she looked like the living embodiment of a technical disaster. That never stopped her. Holding a wrench over the military satellite panel they were about to send into orbit, she hummed shamelessly as she swayed in her harness. Gala, chorus in 3, 2, go. The immaculate, almost ethereal figure of Echo 25, Gala, remained attached to the structure with perfect precision. Her artificial skin was snow white. Her pastel pink hair, tied in a neat ponytail, drifted slightly with the breeze. Her violet eyes, flawless and unmoving, tracked Zoe's every motion. Upon receiving the order, Gala synchronized her voice. These tear-stained eyes, they've seen the game. They've seen every love that ever walked down the line. Oh, they've seen every love that ever walked down the line. But they know they'll never see another love like mine. While Zoe smeared the panel with soot and grease, Gala remained pristine. No dust, no oil, not a single speck out of place. Her camouflage light armor looked freshly manufactured. The sensors on her temples glowed softly as they processed the data from the satellite, the weather, and the metal framework around them. Zoe chuckled under her breath. Yes, that's it. Keep that tone, Gala. Now, activate the fine assist function. This connector is being more stubborn than my drill sergeant. Confirmed, Lieutenant Zoe Vega, Technical Officer 01, 1st Technological Support Engineering Battalion, Gala replied flatly. Initiating stabilization via Aether Microcontrol. The android extended her hand over the module. A bluish veil flowed from her fingers, like an orderly mist that did not disperse, but moved with exact direction. It was Dominion, a movement designed to influence physical forces, pressure, weight, internal vibration. The air vibrated with a soft pulse, and the internal connector yielded instantly. Then, to realign parts warped by heat, Gala applied transmutation. Small waves of reddish light traced across the metal, reorganizing its internal structure at microscopic levels. The metal returned to its original shape with no welding required. Zoe whistled, impressed. You're walking magic, Gala. I am not magic. I am an ecosystem with authorized Aether channeling protocols at technical level. My design integrates a Synther core, computation matrices, and support protocols for Terran personnel. Yeah, and I'm the queen of chaos physics. Dr. Vega manipulates forces mere mortals cannot comprehend. Nothing can stop my repair-wielding will. Gala inclined her head, unjudging. Humorous interpretation detected. Intensity high. Exactly, Zoe said, continuing to talk without pause. High is my default mode. A red light blinked on her comlink. Prometheus base to Vega. Status? Asked a male voice. This is Vega, Zoe answered between panting breaths. She never stopped talking, not even while hanging over a giant void. The Synthor microprocessor is secured. By the way, isn't it incredible that we're launching satellites from Etheria just 20 years after Kaito Watanabe defeated the Dark Lord? It's beautiful madness. Gala intervened, emotionless. Partial correction. 19 years, 11 months, and 8 days have passed since the Dark Lord's defeat at Gorval Akar and the return of the hero Kaito Watanabe to Terra. Gala, let me have my dramatic moments. Dramatic effect adjusted proportionally. Zoe smiled. It's just, that guy was amazing. A Terran who came alone, fought an army of monsters, and returned victorious. You don't understand what that means for someone like me. I understand the historical data. His feat altered the geopolitical course of two worlds and enabled the development of Synthor technologies in collaboration with the Archontal community. Exactly, exactly, Zoe pointed triumphantly. And thanks to that, here we are, on this floating island with gravity-defying forests, sending a military satellite into orbit around an alien planet. Who'd have thought military life could be this awesome? The comm link interrupted again. Vega, seal the module immediately. T-20. Copy. Gala, apply molecular seal. Gala raised her hand once more. A ring of energy glowed beneath her fingers. Dominion to calibrate pressure. Transmutation to fuse the seal. All in perfect silence. Zoe took the chance to tighten the last screws. Done. Technical Officer 01 Zoe Vega reporting module sealed. Optimal condition confirmed. You continue to demonstrate high efficiency despite excessive perspiration, solid residue in your hair, and new marks on your cheeks. They're freckles, Gala. Freckles do not extend with soot. Gala! Understood. The alarms pitched. The entire structure vibrated. Currents of steam rose beneath the beams below. The rocket's silhouette rose toward the sky, wrapped in blinking warning lights climbing the tower. Zoe and Gala withdrew down the cockwalk as the structure shook. Zoe ran, talking to herself, talking to Gala, talking to the air. Today's the day, Gala. My first launch as lead engineer. 20 years since Kaito, and look at us! Look at us! Enthusiasm ratio elevated but acceptable. The rocket ignited. An orange column erupted from the base, and a roar filled the air. FOB Prometheus shook to its core. From above, they could see the jungles trembling with the thunder and the sea rippling outward in waves. Zoe removed her helmet, her face covered in soot and sweat, freckles gleaming under the sun. Gala stood beside her, upright, undisturbed by the wind. The rocket climbed, cutting through Etheria's blue-green sky until it became a single white point. Zoe raised a hand in farewell. Look at that, Gala. It's beautiful. Confirmation, beautiful. Zoe smiled. It's just, that guy was amazing. A Terran who came alone, fought an army of monsters, and returned victorious. You don't understand what that means for someone like me. I understand the historical data. His feat altered the geopolitical course of two worlds and enabled the development of Synthor technologies in collaboration with the Archontal community. Exactly, exactly! Both watched in silence. Silence Zoe broke 20 seconds later to begin talking again as the rocket vanished into the firmament. The synergy between them, so chaotic yet so precise, was perfect, and it was only the beginning. The newly launched rocket carved a white arc across the sky of Etheria, its trails slicing through the viridian canopy like a luminous wound that refused to fade. From the Prometheus base launch platform, Zoe and Gala watched it climb. But below, it was nothing more than a distant rumble and a glowing stroke that disturbed the serenity of the night. On Crossroad Island, the streets thrummed with their own pulse as the rocket's light vanished into dense cloud cover. Markets, docks, inns, and traveler posts continued their bustle without pause. Luminous boats glided through the canals, and the air carried the scent of freshly ground spices and the sweet steam of boiled fruit. Humans and Etherians moved through the avenues with a familiarity forged over 20 years of interdimensional exchange. A Lumini merchant trudged along a side street, exhausted after a long shift. His frame was small, his limbs slender, his soft insectoid features drawn with irritation. Large almond-shaped eyes, black sclera, glowing irises, blinked wearily. His luminous skin emitted faint bluish pulses, dulled by fatigue. A flight mask hung from his face by two thin straps. He tugged it off the moment he stepped into the inn. He glanced skyward at the rocket's lingering trail and clicked the antennae rising from his head. Humans sending machines into the firmament again, he muttered, resigned. The inn smelled of freshly baked root bread. Behind the counter, the Lumini innkeeper, silver-skinned, her long antennae adorned with metal rings, worked with unhurried efficiency. Her eyes brightened warmly when she saw him. "Welcome, Relin. Tough day?" He collapsed on a stool. "Every cycle is tougher. First came the reconnaissance drones, then the automated harvesters, now that." He pointed skyward in distaste. "I'm waiting for the day they decide to drill through the whole island to make room for their toys." The innkeeper set a glass before him, its liquid glowing faintly with bioluminescence. "Life changes, Relin. The world changed when the portal opened. It's painful, yes, but standing still won't stop anything. Adapting is always easier than being swept away." Relin made a low, guttural sound. "Easy to say when your business is full." She smiled without offense. "Which is exactly why I share examples when I can. Look." She gestured to the embedded screen above the counter. A mixed crowd, humans, Lumini, two veiled Crystallis with crystalline bodies, and a pair of Khaazar, occupying an entire table, watched the program that was starting. A colorful logo burst onto the screen with unnecessary sparkles. Then a youthful female voice exploded with almost aggressive cheer. "Hello, interdimensional adventurers! Welcome to GenCast, your favorite channel for travel, culture, and the wonders of the new world." Relin rolled his eyes, but the innkeeper laughed softly. The image shifted to a perfectly lit studio. In front of the camera was Jen Copen. Fair-skinned, blonde hair styled with meticulous care, her wide smile practically self-sustaining. Her outfit blended modern Terran fashion with Etherian accents used more decoratively than culturally. Her enthusiasm radiated outward, though the tension beneath it was equally visible. She spoke like someone reading a script designed to sound natural. "You know this story, of course. We've heard it for 2 decades, but it never stops inspiring. Kaito Watanabe, the 15-year-old Japanese kid speedrunning Etheria Symphony who ended up transported to Etheria itself." Quiet chuckles rippled through the inn. No mockery, just familiarity. Jen continued, her movements theatrically rehearsed. There, the Archontal forces granted him the legendary blades Rising Sun and Eternal Moon. And with them, he defeated the fearsome Dark Lord of the Khaazar, an incredible, legendary feat with a happy ending. Because thanks to that victory, the portal still linking Terra and Etheria was opened. The miracle that changed our civilization forever. Relin took a sip, resigned. She tells it like a children's tale, he muttered. It's entertainment, not education.
The broadcast went on. Through the portal, we met our wise and beautiful Crystallis friends, the wonderful Lumini, whose biology still amazes us, the imposing Khaazar, and of course, the mysterious Sarath, about whom we know so little. The word choice did not pass unnoticed. The camera eased closer to Jin, who adopted a thoughtful tone, though her smile remained too bright. Now then, she continued, ether is the most valuable resource in the modern economy. Thanks to it, we have clean energy, unthinkable technological advances, and even the sensor-embedded microprocessors enabling this very broadcast. But Etheria holds countless other treasures. For instance, the flora of the Canto-luminous jungles, ancestral home of the Sarath, a natural reserve capable of producing medicines that could revolutionize Terran healthcare. A focused silence settled across the inn, but her smile tightened. That wonder remains out of reach. The strict communal policies of the Sarath have blocked any significant progress. Why? Why hoard resources that could save lives? Why deny help to the rest of Etheria and Terra? Her tone was gentle. Her implications were not. Backwardness, obstruction, irrationality. The Lumini innkeepers sighed while serving other customers. She talks about us like products, she murmured. He talks to his own kind, Relin replied flatly. Jin's voice suddenly grew exuberant. But today, we'll get answers. Today, we're joined by a guest who will bring us closer to the truth. A brave Sarath, a hero of freedom and justice. Firaxar Korvax. Heads turned toward the screen. The studio now displayed a Sarath seated upright. His Sarurian humanoid frame was broad in the torso, refined in the arms, powerful in the legs. His olive green scales bore ochre patterns rising across his neck and jaw. Scars cut across his body. A line of violet metallic feathers, the natural mohawk of a plucked, rose sharply from his skull, giving him a near martial bearing. He wore a tailored suit chosen to soften his appearance and present him as a civilized guest. Jin stretched out her hand with an exaggerated smile. What an honor to have you here. He inclined his head, not a tearing greeting, and icy in tone. Jin retracted her hand awkwardly, laughing through the discomfort. Cultural exchange, right? She chirped forward. Firaxar finally spoke, his voice deep and measured. I accepted this invitation because my people deserve to be heard, and because the truth about our so-called communal dictatorship must be made known. The inn murmured. The innkeeper folded her slender arms. Jin nodded eagerly, oblivious to the blade in his words. Yes, exactly. That's what we want. To break down walls, understand biases, open ourselves to new perspectives. Help us understand why the Sarath hold on to a system that seems so restrictive. Relin released a dim, luminescent bubble with weary resignation. They're playing with fire, he said. Firaxar's head shifted slightly. His metallic crest shimmered with quiet intensity. I will explain, But our lives and yours do not collide by chance. Someone benefits from keeping us divided. The studio lights caught the shadow behind his eyes. Jen didn't notice it. The end did. And so, beneath veiled tensions and rehearsed smiles, began an interview no one expected to end well.
The camera returned to Jen Copen's smiling face, illuminated by strategically placed studio lights. The host leaned forward with a rehearsed enthusiasm. It clashed sharply with the cool detachment of the guest beside her. "Firaxar, dear," she began, adopting a tone meant to sound warm and familiar, but landing only as uncomfortable. "Your story is so important to us. Could you tell us what it's like living under such a harsh system?" Firaxar sat with his back straight, his hands clasped, his claws carefully hidden beneath the sleeves of his tailored suit. His deep voice filled the studio with mathematical calm. "My people are ruled by a regime that calls itself the Keenest Eyes, yet sees nothing beyond preserving its own power. A hereditary council, self-appointed, governing without accountability. No one votes for them. No one questions them without suffering the consequences. Orders flow downward, and dissent is punished." Jen tried to soften the tension with a light, brittle laugh. "That sounds intense," she said, ignoring the gravity of her own phrasing. "But are they truly that strict? That closed off?" Firaxar shifted his gaze toward her without moving his neck. The presenter swallowed discreetly. "They control every aspect of Saroth life. There is no personal property, no individual aspirations. Work is mandatory. No wages are paid. Anyone who questions is beaten, imprisoned, or re-educated." A murmur rippled through the inn where the program was being broadcast. The Lumini innkeeper, Zayara, as the regulars called her, stopped polishing a glass. Her large almond eyes glimmered with concern. On the screen, Jen attempted a joke to break the tension. "Well, they must be terrible at family festivals," she said with a laugh that no one joined. The silence that followed was so uncomfortable she cleared her throat, pretending to check notes that didn't exist. Firaxar went on, unshaken. "There are no festivals, no celebrations, no art. If someone carves a figure, sings a melody, or decorates their scales with personal patterns, it is considered rebellion. Individuality is a crime. My people fear thinking. They fear speaking. They fear dreaming." Jen blinked with stage dramatics, her mouth slightly open in mock shock. How did you escape something like that?" The answer came without hesitation. "By luck and by loss. My partner and I tried to cross the waters separating the jungles from the Dawn Crest in Lumini territory. The currents are violent. Elder patrols watch every stretch. She was swept away. I kept going because the alternative was worse. Being captured is worse than dying." A heavy silence fell over the inn. Even the Khaazar at the back stopped eating. Jen, meanwhile, seemed torn between performing solemnity or keeping to her on-camera persona. She chose an awkward mix. She placed her hand on her chest in a rehearsed compassion. "Oh, Firaxar, I can't imagine that pain," she whispered with excessive melodrama. It's devastating. And to think all this happens while the world could help. Someone has to do something. We can't allow that dictatorship to keep its people in chains."
The Saroth dipped his head slightly, as if accepting condolences from someone who did not truly grasp what he described. "I mention it," he added, "because thousands still live that way. Thousands trapped in a structure that reduces them to instruments of the console. And outside, in Terra, There are governments and corporations capable of intervening, yet they remain undecided. Jen nodded vigorously, delighted to return to a less emotional thread. Exactly. Yes, someone should act. She turned to the camera as if addressing the world directly. It makes no sense that a territory so rich in natural resources remains stuck in backwardness. The cantiluminous jungles have incredible potential, medicines, biological compounds, unique materials, and all of it simply sitting there, wasted in the hands of those who don't know how to use it. Ziyara frowned at the phrasing, but said nothing. Relin, beside her, drank from his glass. Desperate for intervention. That's how all help stories begin. On the screen, Firaxar drew a steady breath, as though preparing to deliver the key line in a speech. If Terra supports our cause, if it provides weapons and political recognition to the Free Sarath, we can overthrow the Council. We can build a real nation, with rights, with freedom, with democracy. Communal ownership only breeds misery. Individual liberty is the path. With Terra's help, we will succeed. Jen nodded energetically. Though her eyes betrayed an unease, she tried to hide behind the whitest smile she could muster. Yes, exactly. Freedom for all the... And then the screen flickered. First a white flash, then static lines, then a brief blackout that affected other devices in the inn as well. Lamps, luminous panels, the register. Relin raised his antenna in annoyance. Perfect. Another outage, he grumbled. Ziyara approached with a deep frown. The ether crystal powering the inn is still unstable. It's been acting up for cycles. I hired a resonant to repair it today. He said he'd come before nightfall, but he's running late. Well, he'd better hurry. I don't want to eat in the dark. Your inn is cozy, Ziyara, but not cozy enough for me to trust the Khaazar when I can't see my own fingers. The innkeeper let out a short laugh. Calm down. If they wanted to eat you, they would have done it already. The lights returned all at once, then flickered off again, then came back with uneven strength. Nervous murmurs rose among the customers. On the wall, the screen lit up once more, though the program didn't resume immediately. It displayed only a frozen frame. Firaxar Korvax in the studio, staring forward with an expression never meant for the public. A cold firmness, a decision already made, a shadow at odds with the show's cheerful tone. Ziyara paused to study the image. That doesn't look like the face of someone fighting for freedom, she whispered. Relin drank again, offering no comment. The screen remained frozen, and Firaxar seemed to stare back at everyone watching, as though measuring every listener beyond the studio and the camera.
The intermittent crackle of devices and the flickering of the luminous lamps soon wore down the client's patience. Some muttered in annoyance, others resigned themselves to half-lit meals. Relin remained at the counter, antennae twitching with irritation, when the inn's door opened with a soft sound. Someone stepped inside without drawing much attention at first. Only after a few steps did it become clear that he fit no familiar pattern. He was too tall to be human or Lumini, too short to be Crystallis, too slender to be Khaazar. His body was hidden beneath layers of worn clothing, overlapping fabrics, grayish scraps, an indeterminate shawl over the shoulders, and a light coat that looked as though it had survived far too many journeys. A wide-brim hat obscured the upper half of his face, and a Lumini flight mask covered the rest. He did not remove it upon entering, prompting a few clients to glance at him, only to lose interest moments later. In the crossroads, strangers were simply part of the scenery. The newcomer walked to the counter with steady steps. "I'm looking for the owner of this establishment," he said, his voice soft, filtered slightly through the mask. Ziyara approached. Her antennae dipped politely. "That would be me. How can I help you? The stranger inclined his head. They told me at the market you needed a resonant. My name is Kalen the Wanderer. If the aether crystal in your inn is failing, I can repair it. Relin turned toward them with an incredulous look. Ziara, for her part, needed a couple of seconds to process what she'd heard. A resonant on the island was no small thing. Of course, she finally replied. Yes, this way. The crystal is in the basement. She led him through a side door and down a narrow staircase toward the boiler room. The air grew warmer and heavier as they descended. The heart of the inn beat down here. Pipes, valves, tanks, Terran cables adapted to local tech, and at the center, the aether crystal, set into a metal frame. Its surface usually glowed with a steady blue-violet light. Now it pulsed unevenly. Kalen stepped closer without a word. He passed a gloved hand above its surface, not quite touching it. Then he bent down to inspect it from different angles, shifting his hat slightly to let more light through. After a moment, he spoke. The matrix is contaminated. Nothing serious, if addressed quickly. Ziara clasped her hands, uneasy. Can you clear it? Yes, he answered. I'll need to resonate with the crystal. He positioned himself before it and settled into a firm stance. He spread his feet, extended his arms, then let them drop to his sides. He curled his fingers, then opened them. A whisper of energy moved through the air. The basement lights responded. So did the crystal. Kalen began to use aethermancy. First came a pulse of bond, a gentle current linking his energetic rhythm to the crystal's inner structure. The luminous veins within it reacted, vibrating with a synchronized frequency. Then came a finer adjustment, reorganizing the internal flows, purging impurities that had lodged themselves within the mineral's channels. There was precision in every movement of his hands, but also focus in his breath. It wasn't a flashy spell, but an intimate labor between resonant and ether. As the resonance started to stabilize, Ziara decided to give him space. I'll leave you to it, she said, her antennae dipping in respect. Kalen didn't answer, but the slight tilt of his head was enough. Ziara climbed the stairs. The sounds of the inn greeted her like a breath of fresh air. Relin was still at the counter, turning his drink between his hands. So it was true, he asked. A real resonant. She nodded, still surprised. They told me at the market he came with a caravan. I didn't think I'd find one. I thought they'd all died in the war. Relin clicked his antenna. Many did. Resonants were always too close to the veil, too bound to resonance in aether. The war made targets of them all. Ziara leaned against the counter. Resonants channel energy through their bodies. Without them, much of modern aethermancy wouldn't exist. They're like living bridges between the veil and us. And that makes them easy targets, Relin replied. If there's only one left on the island, I'm not surprised he wants to stay hidden. No one wears that many layers for no reason. And those who hide their faces are usually running from something or someone. Ziara pondered that for a moment. Even so, I need him, and he was kind enough to come. Before Relin could answer, the entire inn lit up with a sudden flare. The lamps brightened, the Terran devices hummed with steady power, the screens came back online, even a few lights that hadn't worked for cycles flicked to life. Looks like he's done, Relin said. Ziara smiled. At that moment, Kalen emerged from the basement. His clothes bore no dust, no sign of the effort required to resonate. The crystal is clean, he reported, but its matrix is weakened. If it becomes contaminated again, you'll lose it. You're demanding more from it than it was designed to sustain. Ziara's antenna drew together. Maybe I should buy one of those new Synther models the Terrans make. They say they're more practical. Kalen shook his head. The Synther devices are disrupting aether resonance across the island. They're not designed to coexist with living crystal. Look at your Terran equipment. They're the ones causing trouble for your energy heart. If you install a sensor, you risk losing the flow entirely. Ziara fell silent. She knew he was right. Half the inn's equipment was Terran-made. Thank you for the warning. Still, I can't get rid of tech that keeps the business running. Kalen inclined his head. I understand. She opened a drawer to pay him. Do you prefer Orions? A Terran transfer, perhaps? I don't take transfers, he said softly. I'll accept a sack of root flour and 5 Lumini tents. Ziara stared, surprised, but didn't argue. She prepared the payment and handed it to him. Kalen tucked it away without checking and made for the door with a respectful gesture. May your veil remain clear, he answered, offering an old blessing. Ziara answered with the traditional Lumini variant and watched him leave. When the door closed, Relin clicked his antenna sharply. That price is too low for someone who just resonated with a damaged crystal. That only deepens the mystery. He's desperate to move quickly. Ziara sighed. I thought the same, but I needed him. Relin finished his drink and set the glass down gently. There's an old saying in the crossroads, it's better not to pry into others' troubles. Strangers who hide their faces aren't looking for company. They're looking for silence. Ziara looked toward the door Kalen had passed through. For a moment, the end felt far too quiet.
The convoy left the launch platform behind under a sky still split by the incandescent trail of the rocket. The DTR-47 hardshell rumbled along the main road of Crossroads Island, where the luminous docks pulsed like nerves of light, and the markets blended human voices with crystalline murmurs. Through the narrow armored viewports, one could glimpse Lumini figures gliding through the shadows cast by their own glimmers, and farther away the silhouettes of Khaazar, broad-shouldered, thick-muscled, manes of spines bristling, their hard gazes fixed forward as they hauled a cargo or tools. The soldiers inside looked away each time one appeared. The atmosphere in the vehicle reeked of metal, dampened by humidity, stale sweat, and the oily tang of weapon lubricant. Zoe was wedged into the middle of the left bench. Gala sat beside her, toolbox resting neatly on her lap, perfectly steady despite the armored vehicle's lurching. Their escorts were Marines from Battalion 3, 22nd Regiment of the Northern States Alliance Corps. A varied group, united only by their relentless tension toward anything non-human. Sergeant Darnell, rough-voiced like crushed gravel, kept watch through the front slit with his rifle balanced between his knees. Corporal Mora, that one who never shut up, had a sharp laugh that always skirted mockery. Private Henders chewed a piece of combat root as if it were gum, jaw rolling in lazy circles. Ruiz, nicknamed Kojak since he shaved his head at 16, eyed Gala with a blend of malice and unease. Ibarra, the youngest, posed like an insecure braggart. Weaver, the only one who tried to maintain composure, frowned every time one of the others blurted something inappropriate. The transport jolted over a metal seam, and Mora hissed in annoyance. They should pay us double for crossing this nest of bugs. These locals don't even need weapons to kill you. They just put out the lights and boom, good night, Henders grumbled, glaring out the window. You see those Lumini? Walk around like they own the place. Mutant fireflies, that's what they are. Fireflies don't have giant eyeballs or those pathetic little twig arms, Maury shot back with theatrical disgust. Lumini look like broken toys with the light still on, and they smell like old resin. Khaazar worse, Ruiz added. Starving savages living in a rotting pit. But their women, he whistled brazen. At least the ancients blessed them with that. Laughter erupted. Zoe clenched her teeth. Gala tilted her head just slightly, cataloging the offensive language patterns, but none triggered her restriction protocols.
Irrational, that's what they are. But you know what? I'd still take a sticky Lumini and a grumpy Khaazar over this. He pointed at Gala. These tin cans. What's next? They're gonna replace us with more colorful buckets of bolts? The brass is already drooling over them. Hender spat out the rook, irritated. The day an eco takes my job is the day I walk out of the Alliance. I'll deal with those monsters out there before I let a robot patrol in my place. And they're dumb as bricks, Mora chimed in, glaring at Gala. Look at that blank face. This truck could catch fire and she wouldn't blink. The fear was palpable. The disgust, even more. Then Ruiz threw the provocation. Lieutenant Vega, tired of playing with your life-size doll yet? Zoe inhaled slowly. She wasn't going to bow her head. And you? Tired of hearing the empty echo inside your empty skull? She replied, sweetly. Too sweetly, which only sharpened the insult. The men laughed. To them, she was the weird one, the nerd who didn't know how to fit in. But whenever she opened her mouth, she also proved she didn't know how to stay quiet.
Hinders clicked his tongue and regarded Gala like an eccentric piece of furniture. Eco 25, what does the fox say? Species fox, Terran taxonomy. Typical vocalization is wap-a-pa-pa-pow. This information was recorded from audiovisual material classified as mimetic. The soldiers burst out laughing. Zoe felt heat rising in her cheeks. Anger, embarrassment, exhaustion. Gala waited quietly for new commands. Eco 25, Ibarra said in a mock baby voice. Add my furry balls to my shopping list. Request acknowledged. Item added. Furry balls. Would you like to specify color or size? More laughter shook the armored interior. See? Maury said. Dumb as a brick, and they still want to give us more of these talking boxes. Not even a brick, Weaver murmured, half-heartedly. Bricks don't talk. Zoe lifted her chin. While you troglodytes compete to see whose single neuron is rusting the fastest, Gala and I just put a satellite in orbit. Now you'll have better connection to watch your adult content without it pixelating. No need to thank me, but you may. Silence hit the cabin. Then Mora, scrambling to recover, fired up his nexus and projected an image of Lady Valeriana, the widowed Khaazar queen consort turned Terran erotic icon. She appeared in a skimpy ceremonial outfit, bronze skin traced with bioluminescent lines, gaze fierce and enticing. The Marines whistled, commented, made wildly inaccurate claims about Khaazar anatomy. Well, Vega's got a point. Look at that. Now that's exotic meat, Hinders laughed. Nothing like these filthy Khaazar around here. The queen of the Khaazar, Ruiz intoned with faux reverence. A jewel in the swamp. Gala analyzed the image. Warning, content classified as adult material. Would you like to activate private mode? More laughter. Shut up, Gala, Zoe muttered, fondly. Then Weaver, the calm one, spoke up. I heard the lovely Jin Coppin is broadcasting at Prometheus. If we hurry, we might catch her. Collective enthusiasm rumbled through the cabin. Driver, Darnell barked, pounding the bulkhead. Step on it! The lovely Jin is waiting! The transport lurched violently forward. Gala announced, dangerous speed increase, collision risk. Ignore her, Ruiz said. The only crash I want is with Jin. Zoe rolled her eyes.
The walls of Prometheus finally came into view,
solid, luminous, bathed in the blue glow of the stabilizer field. The soldiers relaxed at the sight. The outside world filled them with a silent terror, a paranoia fed by prejudice, bad experiences, and military propaganda. They passed through the gate and the transport screeched to a stop. The Marines jumped out before the driver even finished braking, howling and gesturing wildly at the mere thought of seeing blonde, sparkling Jen Coppin live. "Soldiers!" a deep voice thundered. "Formation, now!" Chaos froze. Sergeant Elijah Ward of the military police moved through the Marines as if he belonged to the landscape itself. He carried a calm, unwavering presence, a blend of authority and steadiness. His uniform was spotless, light brown hair, short and slightly tousled by the base's humidity. Honey-colored eyes, attentive and honest. He looked like the kind of man who chopped wood in the morning and broke up rice in the afternoon without breaking rhythm. Sun-warmed skin, strong arms, a soft but unquestionable voice. Zoe's throat went dry. "You are still on duty," Ward said, "and with your disgraceful behavior, you've just disrespected your superior officer. Unless you want to scrub latrines for the rest of the week, I suggest you reconsider your priorities." Rapid, nervous denials. Ward dismissed them with a single gesture, and the Marines scattered toward the barracks building, though several shot Zoe accusing looks, as if the reprimand were her fault. When Elijah turned toward her, his expression softened. "Lieutenant Vega," he said with a smile that melted Zoe's muscles. Sergeant Ward, hi, thank you for, what you did. They're idiots, Elijah supplied gently, but useful when they focus. Honestly, they were more unbearable than usual today. Yes, I noticed, Zoe babbled. Gala chimed in. Confirmation. 84% of the words directed at Lieutenant Vega were mockery, dismissals, or offensive remarks. Behavior indexed as hostile across multiple parameters. Zoe covered her face with a groan. Gala, please. But Elijah laughed, and that laugh was warm, almost musical. I like your ECO, Lieutenant. She speaks the truth without sugarcoating it. Zoe nearly puddled on the floor. Elijah lifted his gaze to the sky, where a pure white streak still shone across the firmament. There goes your work, he said softly, with genuine admiration. Seeing that, knowing you and your ECO pulled it off? Not everyone could do such a thing, Lieutenant. You've got talent, a lot of it. Zoe lost all air. Praise always scrambled her brain. This one she wanted to bottle forever.
Well, Gala and I just followed protocol. Well, not always, but as she spoke, her mind betrayed her. A vivid fantasy overtook her. Elijah, herself, a pure white stallion, both of them galloping across a mountain valley at sunset, orange and gold spilling behind them. The wind whipped Elijah's shirt. He laughed, she laughed more. He said, "Come on, Zoe, hold tight." And, "Lieutenant," Elijah called, snapping her back. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she answered too fast. I was analyzing logistical possibilities of the wind. Wind is very important for everything, especially for horses." Elijah blinked, baffled. Horses? Gala entered assistance mode. The lieutenant refers to recreational equestrian simulations, common in human relaxation protocols. "Yes, that," Zoe blurted, desperate with gratitude. Elijah chuckled, amused. "You've got an interesting imagination, Lieutenant. That's good. In a place like this, imagination helps keep you sane. Or very crazy," Zoe whispered. "Sometimes both things go together," he replied calmly. Gala bowed her head, scanning both of their faces. Elijah's voice softened again, that tone that made Zoe's knees flicker. Well, the colonel is waiting for your report. Wouldn't recommend keeping him waiting, but I also won't let you leave without knowing you did an excellent job today, truly. His words hit Zoe like a fist full of flowers. Thank you, Sergeant Ward. You too. Always. Well, thanks. Goodbye. See you later. See you later, Lieutenant Vega. Zoe watched him walk away, feeling as if the entire world had turned into some strange shimmering gel that made it hard to walk straight. Gala approached. Recommendation: if you wish to mate with Sergeant Ward, you will require a more effective social strategy. Gala, Zoe groaned, face burning. I can prepare a courtship protocol based on rural cultural patterns. Gala, stop. Would you like me to add furry balls to your priority shopping list? Zoe let out a defeated laugh. Yeah, do that. Priority 1. And together they headed toward the main building, the disastrously awkward Terran engineer and her too honest ECO, beneath the sky still carved by the shining trail of the rocket they had sent into the heights. Zoe's chest still ached from the squad's disdain, but Elijah's voice echoed brightly enough in her memory to keep her moving. The wind smelled of metal, of distant jungle, and of possibilities that Zoe couldn't yet decipher. But she wanted them, even if they scared her.
Port Cythriel, Lumenport, the mercantile jewel of the Lumini district on the island of the Crossroads, breathed with filtered lights as dusk began to fall like a damp shroud. The streets, winding like crystalline roots, shimmered with neon reflections and the gentle glow of organic bioluminescence sprouting from luminous posts, adapted plants, and living signs. Between stalls saturated with sweet and spicy scents, inorganic crafts that seemed to grow by themselves, and docks where hybrid vessels floated on translucent platforms, a solitary traveler moved wrapped in his own silence. Kalen, the wanderer, walked with measured precision. Tall without being giant, slender beneath layers of worn clothing, he moved like someone trying to occupy as little space as possible. A wide-brimmed hat obscured his silhouette, and a Lumini flight mask filtered his breathing in a soft, discreet rhythm. From afar, he might be mistaken for a tired merchant or a directionless explorer. Up close, however, there was something in his posture, an almost imperceptible tension that revealed complete awareness of every sound, every vibration in the ground, every brush of air against his skin. He had tried to ignore it for hours, yet his gaze kept drifting upward. Above him, the night sky gleamed with the faint trail of the Terran rocket Zoe Vega had launched into orbit. Now it was only a pale streak thinning among delicate clouds, but it remained an open wound on the horizon. Near the point where the trail dissolved, a new star twinkled weakly. Not a star, of course, but the freshly deployed satellite. And beside it, dominating the entire firmament, hung the portal. The luminous ring floated over the island like a monolith in the sky, an impossible circle held up by nothing, open across its whole circumference, radiating a white glow that came not from light, but from its very being. To many, it was a miracle, a doorway between worlds. To others, a reminder that Etheria had been exposed, forced to share its nature with a place not meant to understand it. To Kalen, it was an eye that watched him without blinking. The light shifted for an instant, or perhaps it was only his imagination, but the sensation was so sharp it stole his breath. Every fiber of ether within him responded with a tense note, as though someone had plucked an invisible lute. The resonance of the veil quivered in discord, a low whisper felt not in his ears,
but in his bones. There it was again, the disturbance. He had sensed it for weeks in small pulses, but tonight was different. This was no passing tremor. It was a sustained echo, a line he could follow like an invisible path. And Kalen followed it, guided by the instinct honed in every resonant. The direction was unmistakable. Prometheus base, on the far side of the island. His stomach tightened. Every part of him, discipline, caution, years spent hiding, told him he shouldn't get close to Terrans, much less to a military installation roaring with center energy day and night. But the disturbance in the veil, that was something else. Ignoring it would be dangerous negligence, and a resonant did not leave questions unanswered. He stood still for a moment, weighing possibilities, costs, risks. He drew a slow breath behind the mask, and something tore him from his contemplation. A scream. It came from the neighboring street, where a strip of human shops blended with Lumini stalls. Kalen slid toward the corner with the caution of a trained animal. The vibration of the veil diminished, but his attention was already anchored to the conflict.
At the entrance of a Terran grocery store, 2 security guards were shoving a Khaazar family. The father, tall, dark-skinned, with glowing fissures along his arms, his naturally spiked hair forming a broken mane, struggled to keep his balance while shielding the younglings behind him. The mother held her arms out, placing herself between the guards and her children. "I said get out," barked one guard, broad-shouldered and permanently scowling. "This establishment reserves the right to deny service, and you're making the real customers nervous." The Khaazar mother growled, a deep, controlled sound. "We've done nothing. We came for food like everyone else." "We have the money to pay," added the father, voice rough. The second guard, younger, spat onto the pavement. "If you've got money, buy decent clothes. With those loincloths, you look like swamp savages." His gaze slid to the wife. "And you, dressed like that, no surprise if someone accuses you of indecent exposure." The Khaazar woman didn't lower her eyes. "This is how we dress, how my people have always dressed, long before your grandparents dreamed of coming to our land. We will not cover our bodies to ease your insecurity." Irritated by her calm defiance, the older guard stepped forward and pointed at the family with a harsh jerk of his hand. "You know what? I'm calling immigration services. Let's see how brave you are when they haul you all straight back to your continent. These districts aren't a playground for things like you." The woman spread her arms slightly, protecting her children in an instinctive movement, though her voice stayed steady. "You have no right. We entered legally with the caravan, as we do every cycle. All our permits are in order." She stepped forward. "And the island of the crossroads is still neutral territory. It belongs to neither Terra nor anyone's council. You cannot deport us from our own land." Passers-by, mostly Lumini, pretended not to look, yet one of them winced, as if the very light had dimmed under the weight of tension. The older guard laughed, a bitter, scornful noise. "You talk like you've got real rights, but you lost the war. You followed your great dark lord. Now deal with the consequences." The father tensed. "Not all of us served Cahorn." "But none of you stopped him," spat the younger guard. "Go back to your damn continent of ashes. This isn't a place for NPCs like you." The insult struck like a hammer. Kalen felt the immediate shift in the air's vibration. The Khaazar froze for a heartbeat that seemed endless. NPC, the N-word. It meant something trivial on Terra. In Aetherdaria, it had become venom. To call an Aetherdarian that meant you are nothing, an object, expendable. Your life has no worth. The Khaazar father roared from deep in his chest, not blind rage, humiliation, years of it, finally overflowing. He surged forward, ramming into the older guard who hadn't expected resistance. They crashed to the ground, the Khaazar on top. The younger guard stepped back and drew his weapon. He chambered around, aimed at the whole family. Kalen tensed instinctively. The disturbance of the veil hummed faintly in the back of his consciousness, but the tension now was immediate, physical, human. The bustle of the port evaporated. Only the ready-to-fire weapon, the trembling Khaazar mother shielding her children, and the distant echo of the portal watching from above remained. A bluish spark rippled across a nearby luminy street lamp. The port held its breath. The younger guard's arms shook, his pistol trembling as he pointed it straight at the Khaazar father's chest. His pupils flickered between fear and fury as he shouted, voice cracking. On the ground, everyone, hands on your head, now. Now, don't make me say it again. His finger grazed the trigger over and over, too tense to pull, too panicked to stop. The street, bathed in iridescent signs reflecting off damp stone, froze in taut silence. Voices died. Only the guards' ragged breaths and the muffled sobs of the Khaazar children remained. A few steps away, his partner managed to stand. He spat blood, bracing himself against the store wall. I'm calling the police, he gasped. They'll drag you straight to the cells, you filthy vermin. Maybe they'll give you the death penalty for attacking a Terran officer. The Khaazar exchanged helpless looks. The father slowly raised his hands. The mother tried to guide the children to mimic him. One of them, a tiny boy, barely 6 cycles old, stumbled backward when his mother nudged him into place, slipping off the curb and landing hard on his back. He burst into tears, shaking. That involuntary movement was all the guards needed. The older one thrust out an arm and roared, "He's attacking! Shoot, Jonah, shoot!" And Jonah, trembling, pulled the trigger. The moment stretched thin, like a thread that should never break. The click of the hammer never became an explosion. From Kalen's perspective, watching from the adjoining street, half shrouded in shadow, half lit by the Lumini district lanterns, time fractured into crystalline shards. His breath thinned taut, the pulse of aether flickering around his gloved fingers. The guard fired just as Kalen murmured, transmutation resonance, movement, rupture. He didn't take a step, only a twist of the wrist and a precise vibration of inner tone. The guard's weapon emitted an odd click and jammed. The trigger froze completely. Jonah yanked at it desperately until the metal warped and the magazine burst inward with a hollow pop. The gun literally fell apart between his hands. "What the hell?" he stammered. "I told you, idiot. I told you to check the maintenance on your issued weapon," the veteran barked, trying to hide the shiver running down his spine. Their shouts mingled with startled cries from the crowd. No one knew where the interference came from. No one saw Kalen, motionless, a shadow at the edge of the event. Amid the chaos, the resonant wove another movement. He adjusted his stance, felt the veil's vibration, that subtle music surrounding every living being, and whispered, transmutation resonance, movement, regression. The effect was instantaneous. The guards' uniforms dissolved into loose fibers, fluttering like falling threads. The fabric reverted to its earlier state, unspun strands, incomplete skeins, unfixed dyes. Everything slipped off their bodies in a heap, leaving them naked on the street. The young guard shrieked. The older one struggled to cover himself. Silence fell in utter disbelief. Then the entire street exploded with laughter. Lumini and humans alike pointed. Some Khaazar, still trembling, laughed out of pure nerves. The guards crouched low, humiliated and exposed. "Magic! These monsters used magic!" bellowed the older guard. "I'll report you all. Everyone's paying for this." Kalen inhaled sharply. Dizziness rushed through him. Even so, he lifted a trembling hand and finished. Dominion resonance, movement, gravitate. The gravitate effect tore through his chest. A spasm seized his diaphragm. The vibration, deep and overwhelming, stole his breath. Both guards were slammed to the ground as if crushed by invisible weight. "No!" whimpered the young one. "I can't move! Help! Please, I can't breathe! Someone!" cried the veteran, cheek pressed to the cold pavement. The Khaazar family froze for a second. The father felt something brush his thoughts, a voice coming from nowhere. "Run, now." He recognized it instantly. Vinculo resonance. Someone was communicating without revealing themselves. He grabbed the children and pulled his wife. "To the caravan! Move!" They vanished down the lanes toward the western encampment.
Kalen tried to turn away, but his legs betrayed him. The Dominion vibration had drained almost all his vital ether. His breath was so faint he wasn't sure air still entered his lungs. He fell to his knees, then onto his side. The port lights, the neon bars, the Syntha refinery cower, the reflection of the dimensional portal stretched into blurry lines. Shapes bled into shadow as if reality itself was warping at the edges. The sky spun. The portal shone above him, its light as heavy as his own body. Fool. Too much. Again, too much. Each breath was a cut in his chest. I'll die here, in some nameless street, with no grave. Footsteps approached. You took a bigger risk than most would to save that family back there, Resonant, said a lilting female voice, utterly unafraid. That kind of sacrifice is rare these days. Trying to win the title of legendary hero, are you? Kalen raised his head just enough to see her. A woman, a Crystalli woman, knelt beside him. Her translucent skin shimmered under the port's blue lights. Her long azure hair fell forward like a curtain of water. Her green eyes studied him with a mix of tenderness and amusement. Athletic, dressed for silence, flexible leather, dark bands, feather-light plates fitted to her joints. A specialist in stealth, a hunter, or worse. An assassin? The thought chilled him. She simply smiled. Relax. If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't have waited until you collapsed like a waterlogged sardine, she murmured. Here, drink this. She placed a small vial in his hands, etched with viridian runes, a Sadoth potion, its deep green hues swirling at the slightest touch of air. It'll restore enough of your vital ether to get you standing and running again. But you'll owe me a favor, all right? Don't use 3 movements back to back without an artifact to carry the overflow. You're good, really good, but not indestructible. A dead martyr helps no one. Kalen hesitated. He was a resonant, and caution shaped every decision. She was a mystery with long legs and too many hidden tools, but he couldn't breathe. Every second was a coin slipping away. He drank. It burned going down, like a warm current spreading into his chest. His lungs expanded in an involuntary shudder. Air returned. The world steadied. That's it, she said sweetly. Good boy. She straightened, listening to something only she could hear. Then she pulled from a hidden compartment a small object wrapped in black cloth. She unfolded it, a dark volcanic piece with blood-red fissures that seemed to pulse. An Ashcrawl talisman, she explained with a touch of pride. Karuthar, from the split core, the Khaazar elders called it. Tradition says it strengthens the bearer's resonance if their will is firm. I received it on a long journey, but with your natural affinity, you'll make better use of it. As a reinforcement artifact,
It should keep you from dying next time you save the world without warning. Kaelin blinked, stunned. I don't understand. Why? Because you're a noble idiot, she replied, shrugging. And because you felt the disturbance in the veil, too, didn't you? Her green eyes locked onto his. Something big is moving, and you'll need this more than I will. Use it well. She winked and turned. By the time Kaelin gathered enough breath to thank her, she was already gone. No footsteps, no echo. Vanished like a whisper in the Lumini port streets. And the portal, the bright eye in the sky, kept watching everything. Kaelin, still lying on the ground, breathed with difficulty as he stared at the glowing ring floating over the rooftops. The disturbance was still there, calling him, warning him, and he knew with a certainty that tore through him that what had just happened was only the first tremor of something far greater. The white glare of the studio spotlights faded before the close-in curtain of the GenCast animation finished sliding across the screen. Jen kept talking to the camera, smile frozen, hands still sketching hearts in the air, unaware that her guest had left the set without waiting for applause, farewells, or pleasantries of any kind. Firaxar Korvax rose from the couch as if the entire interview had been nothing more than a brief stop along a far more important path. His dark coat fell heavily across his shoulders, and with a fluid stride he crossed the improvised set while the crew was still unplugging cables. 3 men in black suits appeared from the side corridors to flank him. 2 more moved ahead to clear the way. None wore insignias. They didn't need to. Their discreet earpieces, visor implants, and the precision of their movements revealed their affiliation clearly enough. Black Anvil, the corporation with more special licenses than any other entity on the island of the Crossroads. Firaxar didn't speak to them. The entourage led him out of the studio, down the prefabricated corridors installed in the communications wing of Prometheus Base. Outside, a vertical lift aircraft waited, one of the models Black Anvil kept on temporary loan to Terran forces. The turbines spun with the muted hum of technology, far too advanced to be there innocently. The Sarath boarded without looking back. As soon as the last black suit stepped inside, the doors sealed shut and the VTOL lifted off with a clipped mechanical thrum. Inside the passenger cabin, Thomas Hartley was already waiting for him, settled comfortably in a dark leather seat. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit and a triangular Black Anvil pin fastened to the collar of his shirt. His smile was wide, almost warm, contrasting with the rigid posture of an executive who knows far too much of the world to ever truly relax. Director of External Strategic Operations, Hartley was responsible for articulating the board's will in places where state diplomacy became inconvenient. His word was law in the shadows, and his cordiality a thin lacquer over a machine entirely devoid of scruples. "Fury," he exclaimed, arms opening in an exaggerated welcome. "My good friend, that was a sensational interview, simply sensational." Firaxar tilted his head slightly. "Don't call me that. You sound upset, my friend. Didn't like how the suit looked on camera? Come on, you look like a first-line diplomat, presidential even. President of the Free Sarath Nation, Firaxar Korvax. The audience is going to love it. I did not come here to be loved." Firaxar replied dry as stone. Hartley's smile held, though his eyes sharpened. He rapped his knuckles lightly across the cabin wall. An opaque curtain slid down, sealing them off from the rest of the crew. As the VTOL climbed,
and the fuselage's vibration settled into a steady hum, Hartley crossed one leg over the other and snapped his fingers as if suddenly remembering a small, lingering matter. "By the way, Firaxar, did you bring my order? You know, the special one, the one from last time." The Sarath opened one of the inner pockets of his coat with a precise motion. He drew out a small bundle of vegetal cloth sealed with a dark resin. He set it on Hartley's palm without ceremony, as if handing over something as harmless as a kitchen spice. "Here, collected in the outskirts of the canopy, freshly processed. They call it Shadol Iluvara powder. There should be no trace of where it came from." Hartley unfolded the cloth with eager fingers. A dark green powder, almost iridescent under the cabin's dim lights, had gathered in the creases. He dipped a fingertip into it, brought it to his tongue, and closed his eyes. The reaction came almost instantly. A long exhale, halfway between a stifled laugh and a moan of relief, escaped him without any attempt at restraint. His pupils dilated sharply. "Damn," he whispered. This is superior to the previous batch. Much purer, much finer. My clients are going to tear each other apart for this." He leaned toward Firaxar, euphoric. "Do you have any idea how this will sell on Terra? In the streets of Neocrane City, in the Golden Coast arcologies, on the orbital platforms? It'll turn to gold, pure gold." Firaxar watched him, expression unchanged. "I am glad it meets your expectations. But remember, that substance is dangerous in excess. Iluvara does not forgive." "Oh, please," Hartley scoffed, tucking the bundle into a hidden compartment of his briefcase with greedy satisfaction. "Since when do you care about the health of Terrans?" The Sarath didn't answer. His silence was enough to steer Hartley back to the matters that truly mattered. "Good," Thomas said at last, settling back. "Now we can speak like adults. Did you get what you needed from Prometheus?" Firaxar rested his clawed hands on his knees, considering. "Yes, I moved through the facility with enough freedom. I located 3 blind spots with no thermal protection and no sensor oversight. More than enough blind spots, and several points where..." His fingers traced a thin line in the air, as if marking an invisible surgical cut. "Where it will hurt most. The attack will be effective." Hartley's eyes brightened with unhidden enthusiasm. From his briefcase, he produced a small, metallic cylinder with a biometric reader. "Here's the rest in the documentation," he said. "Updated schematics, exact personnel rotations, emergency protocols, and the timetable for the night shift change, just as you requested." Firaxar took the device with a measured motion. "The strike must occur before the eco units take over the guard. If they're active, the margin for error disappears." "Of course," Hartley nodded. "I'll make sure the shift change is delayed. Calibration failure, maintenance backlog, and unexpected inconvenience." He clicked his tongue. "We know how to manage these little frictions. You and your people will have more than enough time to do what needs to be done." Firaxar raised his gaze. "I dislike evasiveness regarding casualties, Hartley. I know what you intend. You want the Alliance to react. You want outrage, the perfect narrative. We want the government to stop sleeping at the wheel," Thomas said, almost pedagogically. "We need public opinion to see intervention in the Viridian canopy as inevitable. We need something that shakes the civilian sector awake and forces the governments to take action. Future contracts depend on it, and you, more than anyone, know what that means." Firaxar fell silent. Hartley continued. "The weaponry has already been distributed to the designated points. The funds have reached your contacts. From here on out, Firaxar," he corrected himself with a hint of irony, "you're in charge. Logistics, coordination, team selection. And you'll ensure it's clear
Who's responsible? The Saroth communal regime, Firaxar said without blinking. Exactly. The attack must look like they're doing, with Khaazar insurgents involved. We need the world to see a monstrous alliance between the keenest eyes and the children of the Dark Lord. Hartley made air quotes around the ancient Saroth title. Do you have the right people? He asked then, more serious. People willing to get their hands dirty, to work with fire, blood, confusion, to create impact. Firaxar inclined his head. Not quite yes, not quite no. Theatrics have always mattered to your people. Even back when that hero Kaito played at saving worlds with his colorful troop of companions. You love a recognizable icon, a face that says, "This is the final battle." Hartley's smile broadened. Do you have someone in mind? Firaxar's pupils narrowed, gleaming with a spark of dark pride. Tell me, Thomas Hartley, what would your superiors say if during the attack, the one to reappear was none other than Khaazar Ghan? The name struck the cabin like a silent thunderclap. The lost prince, the son of the Dark Lord Kor. The heir vanished in the ashes of Vargol Akar. Hartley blinked, unable to mask the tremor of excitement crossing his face. That, he whispered, that would be historic, absolutely perfect. Firaxar leaned back in his seat as the VTOL crossed the night sky over the island of the crossroads, lit in the distance by the colossal dimensional portal dominating the heavens. The machine's shadow cut across the light like a warning. Firaxar said, voice low, almost an oath. Then prepare yourself, because the world will soon remember his name. The aircraft sped toward Black Anvil's corporate district in the city, leaving the military base behind. Below them, the island continued its nightly routine, unaware of the pact sealed in that cabin. And so, between corporate shadows, old wounds, and a lost prince, the next great disaster began its march.